Ethan Walker had spent most of his life in the mountains. While other people chased careers, crowded cities, and comfortable homes, he preferred silence, pine forests, and the sound of rivers cutting through stone. The mountains had taught him everything he knew. They taught him how to survive winter storms, how to track deer through fresh snow, and how to live with very little. For years he worked wherever he could find employment. Sometimes he helped ranchers repair fences. Other times he hauled lumber or guided lost hikers back to civilization. The work was never steady, but it was enough. At 38 years old, Ethan owned almost nothing. His possessions could fit into a few wooden crates and a weathered canvas pack. He slept in hunting shelters, abandoned sheds, and occasionally in a small tent beside mountain streams. He never complained. Simplicity suited him. One chilly autumn morning, Ethan stopped at a tiny general store located on the edge of a mountain town. The store was old, with creaking wooden floors and shelves packed with canned goods, tools, and supplies. A handful of locals sat around a stove drinking coffee and talking about town matters. Ethan entered, purchased a bag of flour and some dried beans, then overheard part of a conversation. "Nobody wants that old place." "Can't blame them. Even for $1, I'd stay away." The men chuckled nervously. Ethan glanced toward them. "What place?" he asked. The conversation immediately quieted. An elderly man with a gray beard leaned back in his chair. "You haven't heard about the cabin?" Ethan shook his head. The old man exchanged looks with the others before speaking. "There's an abandoned cabin about 20 miles north of here. Been empty for decades. County finally took ownership because taxes weren't paid. They are auctioning it next week." "What's wrong with it?" Ethan asked. The men laughed again. "Depends on who you ask." Another man joined in. "Some folks say it's haunted." A third man snorted. "Others say the owner disappeared." The old man nodded slowly. "Samuel Grayson. Lived alone up there for years. Then one day he vanished. No body. No note. Nothing." Ethan listened quietly. "How much are they asking?" $1. That answer surprised him. $1. The men nodded. "The county just wants it off the books." "Then why doesn't someone buy it?" The old man stared into his coffee. "Because strange things happen there." Ethan almost smiled. He had spent enough time around mountain towns to know how stories grew. A missing owner became a ghost. An old cabin became cursed. Fear spread faster than facts. "What kind of strange things?" he asked. The old man hesitated. "People see lights at night." Another man added, "Sometimes smoke comes out of the chimney. But nobody lives there. Doors open on their own. Voices too." The stories continued. Ethan listened patiently before collecting his supplies. Sounds like wind and imagination. Nobody laughed. The old man looked directly at him. Maybe. A week later, Ethan attended the county auction. Only 3 people showed up. A county clerk. A deputy. And Ethan. The entire process took less than 5 minutes. The clerk seemed relieved. "Do I hear any bids for the Grayson property?" Silence. $1. Silence again. Ethan raised his hand. "I'll take it." The clerk immediately struck the gavel. Sold. Just like that, Ethan became the owner of a mountain cabin and several acres of surrounding wilderness. The deputy shook his head. "You're either brave or foolish." "Probably both," Ethan replied. Over the next few days, Ethan gathered his belongings and prepared for the journey. The cabin sat deep in the mountains where roads ended and trails began. Reaching it required nearly an entire day of travel through rugged terrain. Early one morning, he loaded his supplies onto a mule named Jasper and began climbing into the wilderness. The air smelled of pine and cold stone. Golden leaves drifted from aspen trees. Birds darted through the forest canopy. The farther Ethan traveled, the quieter the world became. By afternoon he reached higher elevations where rocky ridges rose above endless forests. The trail narrowed and twisted between cliffs. Cloud shadows moved across distant mountains. The landscape felt untouched by time. Hours later, the sun began sinking toward the horizon. Orange light spilled across the peaks. Then Ethan saw it. The cabin. It stood alone in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. From a distance it looked like something forgotten by the world. The roof sagged slightly. Several windows were cracked. Vines climbed the walls. A rusted chimney leaned at an angle. Yet despite its condition, the structure remained standing. Something about it immediately caught Ethan's attention. Instead of feeling abandoned, it felt occupied. The thought came and went quickly. He blamed exhaustion. Leading Jasper into the clearing, Ethan studied his new property. The forest surrounding the cabin seemed unnaturally still. No birds sang. No squirrels moved among the branches. Only the wind whispered through the trees. He tied the mule near a water trough and approached the front porch. The wooden steps groaned beneath his boots. The front door stood closed. A heavy iron lock hung from it. Ethan pulled a key from his pocket. The county had provided it during the sale. He inserted the key. The lock clicked. Slowly he pushed the door open. The hinges released a long groan. Dust drifted through shafts of fading sunlight. The interior smelled of old wood and cold stone. Ethan stepped inside. His boots echoed across the floor. The main room contained simple furniture covered with dust sheets. A rocking chair sat near a stone fireplace. Bookshelves lined one wall. An old table occupied the center of the room. Everything appeared untouched. Yet something felt wrong. Not dangerous. Just strange. Ethan couldn't explain it. The room was too clean. If nobody had lived there for decades, why wasn't everything buried beneath thick layers of dirt? He walked farther inside. A hallway led toward several smaller rooms. He explored each one carefully. There was a bedroom. A pantry. A storage room. Everything seemed ordinary. Then he noticed something that made him stop. A faint glow. It came from the far side of the main room. Ethan frowned. He was certain the room had been dark when he entered. Slowly he turned. His eyes widened. A lantern sat on a small table beside the fireplace. It was lit. The flame danced gently behind the glass. For several seconds he simply stared. His pulse quickened. Someone had lit that lantern. Recently. He scanned the room. Empty. Silent. The cabin suddenly felt much smaller. Instinctively, Ethan reached for the hunting knife on his belt. "Hello," he called. No answer. The lantern continued flickering. He took several cautious steps forward. "Is someone here?" Still nothing. A cold sensation crept up his spine. Then came the sound. A soft creak behind him. Ethan spun around. His heart hammered. Standing near the fireplace was a woman. She had not been there moments earlier. Of that he was absolutely certain. She appeared to be in her late 20s. Long dark hair rested over her shoulders. She wore an old-fashioned dress unlike anything modern. The fading sunlight illuminated her calm face. She showed no fear. No surprise. No confusion. Instead, she looked at Ethan as though she had known him for years. The silence stretched between them. Ethan tightened his grip on the knife. "Who are you?" he demanded. The woman smiled softly. Her expression carried relief more than anything else. As if a long wait had finally ended. Outside, the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the mountains. Shadows filled the cabin. The lantern's glow brightened. Then the woman spoke. "I've been waiting for you." And Ethan felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. Ethan stared at the woman, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Every instinct told him to be cautious. He had spent enough years in the wilderness to recognize danger, but the woman standing before him did not appear threatening. She stood calmly beside the fireplace, her hands folded in front of her, watching him with an expression that was almost welcoming. "Who are you?" Ethan repeated. "My name is Clara," she replied. Her voice was soft but confident. Ethan glanced toward the door. He knew he had checked every room in the cabin moments earlier. There had been no sign of anyone. "How did you get in here?" "I live here." The answer made no sense. "No, you don't. This cabin has been abandoned for decades." Clara tilted her head slightly. "That's what people believe." Ethan frowned. The woman seemed completely serious. As darkness settled outside, he lit additional lamps while keeping a careful eye on her. Clara moved through the cabin as though she belonged there. She knew exactly where everything was located. Without asking permission, she gathered cooking supplies from the pantry. What surprised Ethan even more was the condition of the food. He had expected empty shelves and spoiled supplies. Instead, Clara retrieved dried herbs, vegetables, and preserved meat. Soon the scent of a hot meal filled the cabin. Ethan sat at the table while Clara prepared dinner over the fireplace. "How long have you been here?" he asked. "A very long time." "Years?" She looked into the flames. "Longer than that." The answer sent a chill through him. When dinner was ready, Clara placed a bowl in front of him and sat across the table. For several minutes they ate in silence. Finally Clara spoke. "Samuel told me this day would come." Ethan looked up. "Samuel Grayson?" She nodded. "The owner. He disappeared 30 years ago." A faint smile appeared on her face. "That's what everyone thinks." Ethan set down his spoon. "You knew him?" "Very well." The fire crackled softly. Clara continued speaking. "Before he left, he told me someone would eventually come. A mountain man. Someone who belonged here." Ethan laughed quietly. "And that person is supposed to be me?" "Yes." The certainty in her voice unsettled him. "You don't even know me." "I knew you would come." Ethan shook his head. "This is crazy." Without arguing, Clara stood and crossed the room. "Come with me." Curiosity overcame caution. He followed her to a section of floor near the fireplace. Clara knelt and pressed against a loose wooden board. To Ethan's surprise, the board lifted easily.